In the small rural town of Pinewood Creek, nestled between rolling hills and winding streams, lived a man named Old Farmer Jake. Jake had been farming his land for as long as anyone in town could remember. His fields stretched wide, filled with rows of corn, wheat, and vegetables that fed the townspeople and beyond. Jake was known for his hard work and perseverance, but this year had been unlike any other. The summer had been dry, so dry that not a single drop of rain had fallen in weeks. The soil in Jake's fields was parched, cracked, and lifeless. His crops, once green and thriving, now wilted under the relentless sun. Day after day, Jake stood in his fields, gazing at the sad state of his plants. The town folks came by, offering words of sympathy, but even they knew the truth. It looked hopeless. Jake, however, refused to give up. He rose early every morning, working the land as best as he could, watering the crops with what little water he had, and praying for rain. But deep down, he knew that without a miracle, there would be no harvest this year. He'd lose everything he had worked for. One evening, after another long day in the fields, Jake sat on his porch, staring out at the setting sun. His old dog, Blue, lay beside him. Jake sighed deeply, his heart heavy with the weight of defeat. "I've done everything I can," he whispered to himself, "but it may not be enough this time." As he sat there, his neighbor, young Emma, walked by. Emma had always admired Jake's resilience and had learned a lot from watching him over the years. Seeing the sadness in his eyes, she called out, "Jake, you've worked so hard. Maybe things will turn around. Miracles do happen, you know." Jake chuckled softly, not convinced. "I wish I could believe that, Emma, but I just don't see how anything could change now." Emma smiled and nodded. "Maybe you won't see it right away, but that doesn't mean it's not happening." That night, a cool breeze swept through the town, carrying with it the faint scent of rain. But the sky remained clear, and Jake went to bed with a heart full of doubt. He dreamed of green fields and bountiful harvests, but when he woke the next morning, everything looked the same, dry and barren. Weeks passed, and still no rain came. The townspeople started preparing for the worst, talking about how they'd have to rely on other sources for food. Jake, though still tending to his crops, was ready to accept defeat. Then, something strange happened. One by one, the townspeople started noticing little things. The tomatoes in their gardens, which had looked wilted and dry, began sprouting tiny green leaves. The small patch of grass behind the schoolhouse, long since yellowed, showed signs of new life. And Jake, out in his fields, saw the faintest hint of green among the dead corn stalks. At first he thought it was his imagination, but as the days went by, more and more of his crops began to grow. The sky never poured down rain, but in the early mornings a thick fog rolled through the valley, bringing with it just enough moisture to revive the land. The crops weren't perfect, and it wasn't the best harvest Jake had ever seen, but it was something. It was enough. The townspeople were in awe. "It's a miracle!" they exclaimed. And Jake, though not one to believe in miracles, couldn't deny that something extraordinary had happened. As he stood in his field, looking over the crops that had somehow come back to life, Jake thought back to what Emma had said. "Maybe you won't see it right away, but that doesn't mean it's not happening." Jake smiled. "I guess miracles do happen after all," he said quietly, tipping his hat to the sky. The moral of this story is, miracles do happen, often in ways we don't expect or understand. Sometimes, when we're caught up in the struggle and the worry, we don't see the small, quiet ways the world is working to help us. Just because you don't see immediate results doesn't mean something miraculous isn't unfolding right in front of you. Miracles aren't always grand or obvious. They can come in the form of small, incremental changes that lead to something greater. So even in the hardest moments, hold on to hope. Keep working, keep believing, and trust that miracles happen in their own time, often when we least expect them. In conclusion, Brokenwood Mystic Farms symbolizes the enduring connection between humanity and the land, a tribute to the beauty of nature and the importance of honoring traditions in a changing world. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You won't want to miss our short story adventures. If you have any questions, requests, or just want to say hello, feel free to contact us at info@brokenwoodmysticfarms.com. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and have a fantastic day, my friends.